We all know that the right habits and mindsets can be transformational in how we live our lives. But among the sea of advice online, it can be challenging to know who to trust with these important life decisions. At The Standard, we answer those questions and introduce you to some of the most successful people in the world in their fields and the habits and the mindsets they've used to achieve their success. To learn more about our social platform, head on over to www.thestandardapp.com. And now, your host, myself, Chris Pallatroni. All right, welcome to another episode of The Standard. I am your host, Chris Pallatroni, and today's guest is Eric Champ of Champ City ATX. He's based out of Austin, Texas. This is one of those guys that just knows the stuff when it comes to habits and nutrition and physical fitness. In this episode, we talk about morning routines. We talk about nighttime routines and the power of making things visible and really easy on yourself. We talk about the need for alone time and sort of getting things done first thing in the morning to sort of set the tone for the day. We definitely dive into habits and nutrition. We talk about mindsets. Really, we cover a lot of road here when it comes to what makes for a healthy lifestyle, if you will. And so I think you're going to hear as you listen to Eric, this is both a guy that has been through a lot. He shares a lot about his personal transformation early on. And then he also talks about some of the things that he thinks would really support people long term to really sort of achieve the lifestyle that they're looking for. So excited to show and present to you Eric Champ. So without further ado, here we go. Well, I am super excited to chat with you. I mean, obviously, I've followed you for a while. Clearly, you wear so many of your habits just on you. You know, I think that's the, I don't know if it's the good or the bad, but it's the reality of being physically fit is there's so many assumptions that go into, well, clearly they're doing something right. You know, because you don't get to be as much in shape as you are, and I won't go into all of it, but without having a lot of really good habits. And so what I'd love you to do, and I know a little bit about your backstory, which I think is great. I think transformational stories are so easy for people to appreciate and sort of like connect with because it's so visual. And I recognize that clearly it's not just a physical transformation that you went through. There's so much mental there as well. But for those that don't know you, I mean, maybe you can just give a little bit of your backstory and just a little bit of like who you are and what you do. Because I know you coach so many people, as you were alluding to. So I think that'd be helpful for people to get a little bit of a background on you.
Yeah. So my personal story is one not unlike many others, but struggled with coping and addiction, and I have an addictive personality, but primarily coping and hiding insecurities and things that I still struggle with today from a really early age. And this is due to some childhood things, separation, childhood trauma that was imprinted on me in an early age, developed to where I couldn't understand what was happening with me. And I had so much anxiety and insecurities and trying to figure out, okay, am I ever going to be able to do things right? Am I going to be abandoned? Like some of these core things that were coded in me, I didn't know where else to turn. And so once like, 12-year-old kids, taking beers from, dad's fridge became like a thing, it took off from there. And that was something that I felt good with. Like, I was like, man, this is kind of helping me. Like, and it also, I felt like in that 12, 13, 14 into high school, I felt like, consuming alcohol then was something that I thought was helping me fit in with others and feeling like, yeah, I can do these things. I could be a part of these people. I can get in these groups. And that lasted my entire life, all the way till, in terms of battling some of those insecurities, in terms of battling some of the sense of like, is this all going to just go away? Are the people who love me, am I going to be abandoned all of a sudden? Like, I still live and work through that vigilantly on really, like, I say vigilantly daily, but I mean, really actively with it on a weekly basis to this day. But the drinking stuff, that was a big component all the way till it through the Marines, I got physically fit in the military during that time, in really good shape, but the drinking only, coping, trying to really suppress some of the things that was happening within me, those demons, that was just exacerbated, because now it was like, some bases, depending on where you are, it's 18 years old, you're good to go. And then certainly when it turned 21, and then it was just legal everywhere. And some people think that you become just this moral compass, or straight and narrow, coming out of the military. And it's just the who I was, the habits, everything that I was doing was only just heightened there. And so that carried through the Marines, and I stayed in shape for a few years after I left the military. But then I started to get serious with my last job, the career I was in for 10 years, worked in the elevator industry, worked for companies, Otis and ThyssenKrupp. Great, really good jobs, actually. I really enjoyed doing what I did then. And I was super excited about being there, really trying to develop the skills that I needed to take on more and more responsibility, but never working inward on any of these feelings. So I continued to drink. The networking came, and then all of a sudden the physical stuff became more and more and more and more like on the back page. Not, next thing you know, from 26 to 36, 10 years with wife, kid, family, house, good career, going, all that, like all the stories out there of folks who are in the same boat. Like, this is just natural for most people to be here. I think I'm probably on the extreme side in terms of how much I was drinking and everything that I was battling. Maybe not mentally on the extreme side, but probably partying a little bit outside of the bell curve. That was a rough place to be, man. But that was all the way to 36. And it's not like, even though I was lying to myself that there was a real problem that was happening, I never truly acknowledged that and faced it and said it out loud and talked. I never did that, which I wish I would have. But I did know something was going on, and I was conscientious of my physical appearance of going on. So I was like, I tried, trying to tackle my physical, trying to get back in shape, maybe like really almost every year. Five of those attempts were, kind of like P90X style programs, 3 weeks, crash and burn, just took on too much, restricted too much, try to put myself out there way too much. And 3 weeks, I'm out. I wouldn't see the gym for 6 months. But then a few of those attempts were somewhat serious attempts to try to get it back. But it wasn't until a lot of times, I think, when clients finally in our program, and then folks who I talk with, when they're finally achieving the level of sustainability for their not just physical health, but their just total wellness, their everything, when they're talking about being healthy. But a lot of it is of course your wisdom that you've learned, and you begin to apply some of these things from the years of failure. There is, I believe there is some stars are kind of aligned type scenarios happening with that. And I think some of that was with this latest journey that I've been on now, like going into the 5th year. So I feel like it's certainly the most sustainable. But, there are a few things that I kind of look back on that was like, man, it's a good thing that this was happening the way that it did. And my wife was eating the way that she was eating. Like, there are a few things that like just really helped me stay more committed than usual and begin to feel a different type of change that perhaps we're a little bit lucky. I thought my dad made this up, and I thought he was brilliant for it. I'm so glad that he always said this, but he always said that, he's like, Eric, man, luck is the residue of design. And I was like, man, that was awesome. It's like 15, 14, 13, 11-year-old kid. I was like, man, that's such a cool quote. My dad's like a philosopher, and he's awesome. And, of course, found out that he, in fact, didn't invent that. But that stuck with me so much. And now, full circle, coming back to thinking about now, that's like kind of a cornerstone of our program and my way of thinking about finding meaningful and sustainable success. And yeah, there were a few things where the stars were probably aligned better, where there was a bit of luck. But perhaps that was just like a result of some larger design implemented by myself of just getting myself ready for this opportunity. And that's in the short of it to for others listening to this right now, trying to figure out like what does that mean? It's like thinking about like a professional football team, a baseball team, collegiate sports, the coaches, managers, GMs. Those folks are the good ones, the good teams. They're getting their players ready, giving them so many opportunities to be successful, and all they have to do is execute. Now, their margin of error is so small at the professional level compared to others, but if you have enough opportunities to succeed, like golf, putting yourself in a position to win, giving yourself those opportunities to succeed, is in my way of thinking, is the way that you can build at least your initial new set of habits, routines, and ultimately your lifestyle, just giving yourself those opportunities, crafting, like James Clear talks about in his book, Atomic Habits, crafting your environment and process to give yourself that opportunity to be successful repetitively, consistently, something that you can just do over and over and over and over and over again. And so that's a little bit about my backstory. It wasn't nothing too remarkable with it, other than perhaps if you're listening right now and maybe you're on the younger side and maybe still kind of wondering why you decided to cope in ways that you are coping with now, or perhaps you are mid to late 30s, 40s, and you recognize that if you were having an honest conversation with yourself, there might be something going on there that really needs to be looked at. Pop the hood and look at that, because it's got to come from within. That's truly the only way. Like, it's going to be like a forever type change. So.
Yeah. In reading a little bit about your background, I know you've sort of said that there was this moment that sort of was the catalyst for some of these changes, right? It was the trying on the pants and recognizing that you might have to jump in size. And I'm so curious, there's so many people that have some sort of vice in their life, alcohol or other, right? There's so many different types out there. And I think the desire to be healthier and happier is just there. I mean, I think it's sort of for most people, it's an innate quality. We all want that, but clearly there is a separation from those that choose the habits and the mindsets and the rituals to actually make that a reality, and those that don't. And, you've straddled both sides of this, for so many years of your life, you didn't embrace this healthier version for a variety of reasons. And then there was, and I don't know if it was exactly like this, but I'd love you to touch on it. And it seemed like, at least the way you've described it and some stuff, is that there was this moment in which everything changed. Like you definitely took a different path in the road, and it led you to where you're at today. And I'm so curious, like, was it just that moment in trying on those pants and recognizing you were going to put on a bigger size, and like, can you walk us through, like, if you can, like, standing at that crossroad? Because I think so many people are at that crossroad and they don't go down that healthier path. Do you remember what that was like in that moment?
Yeah, well, yes and no. The moment is I was still working in the elevator business at this time, and traveled a lot. So on planes, in and out of offices, like 3 cities per week, that kind of thing. And so the pants, really like wearing nice pants with good materials, but they needed to also fit really perfect. And so I was buying nice pants and then hemming them, and I found like the magic pant and the magic person who could help hem these things. And it ended up being kind of, for me anyways, like really like an expensive thing, but it was worth it. It was needed, and like it It's one of those tools. And so, over time, these pants, 34, 30, 36, 38, and I just got these all new pants, buy them in bulk, hem them in bulk, and now these 38 pants are too tight, and I'm like, it's time for 40. I just, got them hemmed, and at that moment, standing in, or we have like a smallish closet, and then we have the mirror like right in front of it, and there's no escaping it. But side note, I always avoided looking in that mirror as I was like getting ready to go to the airport or getting ready to do any sort of like really changing of something. But I never looked at it. I never stared in the mirror, at least not for like the last year or two, like in really like checking myself out, probably a year prior to this moment. So I'm putting on these pants, realizing they're too tight, realize you have to go down this 40 size pant route, and I don't know what it was. Like, it was something that just broke down, just completely broke down. I caught myself looking in this mirror and just staring, just look like I'm looking at you right now as if you're myself. And I'm just looking, and I can't recognize myself. I don't know who I'm looking at. I didn't know who that person was. And like, because I've been so detached from the reality of what I've been doing really my whole life, and expedited or exponentially the last 10 plus years. And so now I'm looking at this person, and I'm trying to figure out who's this body that I'm in. Like, are we two different people? And all of this is happening in what seemed like an eternity. It seemed like it was like just lasted, forever, years, just being there. But it could have been, I'm not even sure. It could have been 10 seconds, 20 seconds, but it was a watershed type moment that I remember that there's no way I could do the podcast like this and answer this question for all of time. There's no way I could forget what that feeling was like of coming face to face with pretty much everything that you have either done wrong, and that's coming to a surface, and it's time to be honest and truthful with it, or everything that you have, what has caused you to think about that you are maybe a monster, that you're maybe this evil person, this person who is selfish, like from the childhood stuff that has just been encoded and printed all this time, causing me to think that I was, like someone other than maybe who I wasn't. And like, because there were long periods of time, I truly thought I was a monster. I believed that I'm not a good person to be around. And that was half of the problem. And the other half of the problem, even though I wasn't, because my wife will tell me, like, remind me, like, Eric, you were a great dad. Like, you were just a tremendous person during this time. But there was this other half of me that truly was selfish, and that needed to grow up, and that was making terrible decisions. And I needed to face those reality. I could no longer hide behind what had happened from past. It's time to come to reality with it. And let's begin to do the real work. And so all of that was happening, and it just couldn't run from it anymore. And it just broke down. Totally broke down.
With as much as about habits, and you've unfortunately seen the bad side of habits and how they can sort of stick with you and metastasize and whatnot, you clearly have made a pretty powerful transformation, both mentally and physically, and now you coach people. You run Champ City. You're hearing what people are struggling with, and you're attempting to help them not just get in shape, but really like develop sustainable habits long term. I'm so curious for you at this stage in your life, what's the habit that really stands out as like the one that helps you the most at this juncture?
I believe this is highly personal. So I'm going to speak about me personally answering this question, and then if you'd like, I can probably just discuss what another general sense. And I believe what I'm going to share is applicable to a lot of folks. But I'll share maybe another common one. I'm one of those people that I like to be very productive early in the morning, no different than a lot of people. I like to get my activity going, like the highest demand of physical exercise done, performed in the morning, and that sets the tone for daily life. I believe optimizing the natural, our hormone cortisol, using it when naturally for me is most effective in the morning in the natural cycle of things. And so I love that. And my natural way of being fits that perfectly. And so the habit for me is simple. It's setting myself up for success the next morning. Still to this day, there's a moment within the evening routine. There's 2 or 3 different moments depending on exactly what the family's doing. But it always happens after one of 3 things is I grab to this day, I grab my workout clothes, my shoes, my socks, my shorts, the shirt that I'm going to wear, the hat, watch, make sure the water's filled, anything that I possibly, and now camera equipment, I'm trying to vlog a little bit in the morning. I guess it's called vlogging. That's a thing, but just capturing some general thoughts there. More on that in a minute. If you want to talk to it, I have a hard time talking directly into a camera. With you, it's a little bit easier, but talking directly into a camera by myself is very hard, which is why I probably don't have like a talking head YouTube.
Yeah.
But so all of this stuff, like I want to be on such autopilot in the morning to where I don't have to think about a single thing. Like that for me is the number one habit because if I can do that, clothes are on, all that stuff's and I'm out the door at the time that I want to be getting ready to do said physical activity. And if I continue to do like that is my lifestyle, like that small action, but compounded over and over and over again. To me, if I do that well, I don't beat myself up if it doesn't happen, especially if I've made efforts to make it happen. But for me, like that, going about that exercise, making it happen, everything in the rest of the day is just awesome. It's just that much better. It's optimized, and all my creative thinking happens in that time. It's the most free, it's the most me time I have. And that usually starts about 5 a.m. Now I have a new goal this year. So it used to be 5:30 to 7. Now it's 5 to 7 to involve a little bit more of just either running or walking, rucking, exercise included. But from that 5 to 7, family's still sleeping. And that's when I'm absorbing awesome content, podcasts like yours, YouTube videos, stuff like where I'm learning at the same time. I have my own thoughts to myself. I'm so creative in this time period. Plus I'm getting the actual benefits of physical exercise, and depending on the adaptation that I'm looking for, whether it's, trying to reach maximum heart rate for that particular, if that's the time of the week, I try to do that once a week, reach maximum heart rate. Or if it's just some sort of endurance or anaerobic training, whatever that training is, achieving that, feeling that small sense of accomplishment very early on in the day, absorbing the low light. My day, everything after that is like easy in a sense, or it's at least, how they say, when you know a lot about physical fitness, when we can build up mitochondrial density within our cells, like have more mitochondria within our cells. That's not a direct correlation to becoming more physically fit. Now, you've done a lot of things to do that, but when it comes to do the hard training, we are able to do that much more effectively with the added mitochondria into our cells, with the more dense mitochondria, right? And so it's the same thing. I like to think of it in the same sense here. Everything else from my day with all of those benefits that I just mentioned. Alone time. What parents, we don't, sometimes if it's not done like in the way that you've just willed it to happen, there literally may not be a second to yourself in the day. That could be really hard. It could be really hard on someone. And so all of those things are directly related to that one habit where I set myself up for success. Because if I don't, maybe I'm a victim of my own creation. If I don't have the clothes set out, or if it's not done just right, if I can't find, my water bottle or my watch or something like that, I'm like scrambling, and it just throws everything off. And I've seen myself just derail completely and not go about doing anything because of one small thing. That's probably a problem. But I love that habit. Here's another thing. With that, it's not just setting the clothes out and being ready to go in the morning. Because I'm lucky, right? My family they like to sleep till about 6:50. Certainly my wife, not a moment before. Kiddo, maybe she'll grow up into waking up early, and that would be freaking awesome. We'll be crushing workouts and stuff like that together. That'd be amazing. We'll adopt that. But, if my wife was also like naturally a morning person, like that was just, sometimes you can train yourself to become one if you really want to. But I think there is a natural sense to that. That could cause a conflict, and people have that in households. Both people are morning people at the same time. So you're sharing. If you have children, it's not like everyone's just going to leave the house and do their own thing. Someone's got to be there to make sure the house doesn't burn down. Right? So that's a real thing. But again, it goes back to luck is the residue of design, where I'm giving myself the best opportunity to do the one thing that's like makes my day, makes me be a better dad, makes me be a better husband, makes me a better trainer, makes me a better boss in a sense. I don't really think of myself in that way. It just makes me be that much better day to day, and then compounded over time. It's enormous. It's a lifestyle. And so it's setting yourself up for success. I like to go through. I go through my workout for the day. One of my coaches, he's been programming for me specifically for a very long time, and I like to look at what the training is for that. I imagine myself doing this. And this one of the coaching things that I work with folks on doing is imagining themselves doing the workout like the night before or even a couple days before, but usually not too much longer than a night or a day before. Visualize yourself going through it, like where the equipment is, where all the transitions are. When you're building your routine, to me, when I think of exercise, it's like, I know it's going to suck. It's going to be hard, but it's not like the way how I felt it sometimes in that 10-year gap where I felt like, oh man, I don't know about workout in the morning. I'm nervous, butterflies. Like it's just going to be just terrible. I don't really think like that. But if you're getting started, hell yeah, you think that. It's like, man, I don't want to go through that. But when you mentally check into it and you already kind of absorb that it's going to sort of suck, the time you get to it, it's like that mental fatigue is sort of done. Like you've gone through it. Now you just execute at a higher level.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that at the same time. I'm reviewing what the workout is. I'm imagining myself going through that process. I'm checking in with the things that are most important that I want to accomplish for the next, really, until I get to this exact moment again, setting out my workout clothes the night before. And it all happens like really quick. I mean, that's just a matter of 3 minutes. But that 3 minutes could potentially be, that's what sets the day up for success. So that's my personal habit. I believe is something that it's odd. It's easier, I guess, said than done. Some of our clients still struggle with doing that. Others who I've spoken with, they want to adopt that particular habit. It's not always easy to do. Some folks just have a hard time doing that. Sometimes it's a practical reason, like the laundry ecosystem in their household doesn't allow for that. Sometimes they don't like the workout clothes that are left after all the the stuff that's been used, and it's just little things like that. There are strategies to work around that. Again, just figuring it out, digging deep, and like if it's something that ends up producing a very high reward for minimal effort, that's awesome. Just reducing as much limbic friction as possible when it comes time to execute the new behavior, right? It's generally what holds people back. It's just that friction holding you back, whether it's mental or physical. So another habit is what I find to be really successful for me personally, but what I also find to be successful for our clients is after dinner, that the time you put, like if you must wash your dishes or get them into a dishwasher or a place other than really leaving them in the sink or on the counters, or whenever you're done with your dish, instead of going to do whatever it is your normal next action would be, which a lot of people would be, if you have kids, maybe it's about jumping into the process of getting them down for bed, or maybe it's you're going to check in for that one last work email, or maybe you're going to sit down on the couch and watch that game, something to where you just decompress a little bit after most dinners. One of those things are generally for adults, like with children. And instead of going to do that action, just immediately 180, walk out the door, go for a little walk, like immediately on autopilot. But the reason why that doesn't happen, often, again, some practical reasons. Sometimes kids have to be attended to. But if there's a way that you could get them involved, if there's a way that you could set up dinner to where everybody could perhaps be outside, it doesn't have to be a walk. But hey, the whole family goes outside for 10 minutes. If the dinner is done a little bit early enough to where you're not hustling to get down at 8:30, get your kiddo to sleep, sometimes way sooner than that, just getting outside and kind of moving your body just a little bit for 10 minutes. Ideally, if you could go for a nice walk for 20 minutes. If you have that in your schedule, that's powerful. But the habit is not that whole set of things that's happening. It's the behavior of, okay, dishes down. That's your cue. Your trigger is to now go outside. Like that's where you want to go. Get out there and move your body. Yeah. That's an amazing thing. And it's just a continuation of if you've done your stuff in the morning, that's the whole day now sort of sandwiched in, and you got your activity in the morning, you're decompressing after dinner. There's some good benefits just from a physical sense of just getting out there and walking. It's low-hanging fruit for many, many, many people. I would say more people I know more people that don't do that by far than people that do that. But the ones who adopt that, again, it's just like the totality of your lifestyle. It's where like this is kind of who you are. Like this is the person that you live. You're living an active lifestyle. You're choosing to be healthier. You're not turning your whole life upside down. Everything I've mentioned so far is sensible. That's another thing that should be looked at and discussed, is sensible things. Like is the said action sensible? But again, easier said than done. So it's physical friction getting in the way. You're tired, right? It's a long day. That's potentially part of the friction that it's not going to get you to do the behavior.
Yeah, the quote you keep coming back to, let's see if I can get it. Luck is the residue of design. I think that's the quote. It's so interesting. Like, obviously, like we talk a lot about on this podcast, when people are sharing their best habit, a lot of people say it's the morning routine. And, at the end, there's so many powerful reasons that you mentioned, from alone time to creativity to if you can tap into your chronotype and you're more optimal for fitness, obviously that jumpstarts your day can get away from you. So, I mean, like there's just an endless amount of benefits in it. But with every good morning routine comes a good nighttime routine. and being meticulous enough to realize that even the best of us have very little desire in the morning to go start to put all those pieces together, whether it's the coffee needs water, you need your coffee cup out. I mean, I just think in the morning, I wake up really early, like at 3:30. And so I do a lot of the same things. It's the shoes, it's the watches. It's everything I needs to be done there. And I'm constantly still thinking like, God, how do I get rid of some of the things that I still have to do? Feed the cats. And I know the few mornings where I have to like wash a coffee cup because we just forgot to turn the dishwasher on. Like, I'm just irate. I'm like, God damn it, I don't want to wash this coffee cup right now. Like, it's just so funny how the littlest thing can really set you off. So a point being is that a powerful nighttime routine is really what makes the morning routine possible. And I know you said you can train yourself to be a morning person, and I do agree. I think there's some validity in that. But I think you'll agree with, the thing about habits and building in routines or rituals is you've got to find a way to make them your own. If you're a single parent and you can't leave your child at home, or shit, maybe you're just not a morning person. You're like, look, dude, I'm a night owl. There are ways to, and this is why I love your quote, is because where your quote is talking about is being intentional. It's what are your intentions? And I think that's something people don't ask themselves enough of, which is, what do I want? Choose your heart. One of the favorite quotes that I've mentioned on this podcast quite a few times is like, and it's from some motivational mojo I listen to like 1,000 times on my runs. It's like, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. And if you do what is hard, your life will be easy. And what I love so much about that is the fact that hard's involved in either scenario. Like, there's no, like, if you're struggling in life and you don't like the way you feel, look, whatever, your job, where you live, that's hard. And if you're living that life, that's a lifestyle, and you're working out all the time and you're doing all those, that's hard too. Like, it is just hard. But I think it all starts with your intentionality, is like, what do you want? And whatever it is you want, you do have to be the architect, and you have to design it, and you have to design a life that, you're going to be happy about at the end of the day. So, there's so many good things that you mentioned in your habits, but I wanted to call out the fact that intentionality, I think, is a really big key. And also just morning routines or nighttime routines support morning routines. They really do go hand in hand. There's no way around that. I'm curious for you, like, mindsets are so powerful for you. You had a very powerful one when you sort of shifted into this lifestyle. Is there one mindset that really stands out for you right now that serves you well, that supports your mental health and your well-being? Is there one that comes to mind?
I've never, even going through the physical changes and the mental mindset shifts to where I'm at now, in which I still vigorously go to professional therapy oftentimes more than once a week. But I've never really established real goals. Like when I was, in that 255 range, when it was like, okay, it's time to get to the YMCA, walk in the treadmill. I never said like, you know what, I'm getting down to, below 190. Like I never had that goal. I never established. Well, that may not necessarily be true, because as I was walking, one of the tactics that I used to walk alcohol back was I made it like a math problem, and I just started to reduce it via numbers, and I kind of stuck to that, and I was able to chart that out. It worked for me over time. But that was really like in the moment of things, and never really was a particular goal. And so my mindset right now, to answer your question, is being more goal focused and more goal in recognizing how powerful goals can be, and set up the proper way to where not only are they achievable, but fun too. And that's what I think I've learned most so far this year. And I'll give a small example. This is going to seem very silly. Not like a monumentous type goal or anything like that, but there's some validity to this that maybe will resonate with some folks. Is that This is not recommended. I have a goal this year to average 20,000 steps by the end of the year. And there will be days that, and I started about mid-February. It was like 15,000 in the beginning of the year, and it's too soft. And so I upped it to 20,000, like average steps. And so I was doing a lot of catch up leading up to that. But now I'm over it, and I'm trying to build up a little bit of like a reserve for when there's going to be downtimes. That's a lot. It's a lot of steps. I mean, if you really look at it,
it's a lot of steps.
If anyone were to pull out your phone right now, if you haven't done it, if you haven't, all I know is Apple. Pull out your Apple Health, go to your steps, see where you were last year, see where you are this year. They're probably relatively close unless you're in like this wild goal that I'm in right now. But the goal is important for me. One, I'm bringing awareness to just walking. And I do a lot of, it's so much self-reflection in this. That's a whole nother episode and why, half of the reason why I'm walking. The other half is recognizing that, Chris, man, did you know that it's a real number? 90 to 95% of folks who go through weight loss journeys end up gaining all this weight back, meaning 5 to 10%, and it's probably closer to 5, maintain their new body composition goal long-term. That, like,
I did not know that.
This is real data from peer-reviewed studies from very reputable places, and the number is only creeping up over time. 90, 95%. I mean, might as well be 100%. Millions of people lose weight every year. Every year. Millions. And it's awesome that they've gone through that achievement. But biology and essentially everything in the universe is conspiring, including your own cells in your body, conspiring against you to get that weight back. So many different things. It's all over the place, pulling you back into that direction. And so part of that 20,000 goal, and I'm coming back to your question, is I'm thinking, like, again, not recommended to as a weight. Walking in general absolutely is a fat loss tool, not even a management tool. It is a very real, effective tool for fat loss, seeking that particular adaptation. But you don't have to go 20,000 steps, nowhere even remotely close. But along with bringing awareness to it, a lot of the self-thinking time, reflecting in the morning, along with that. But I'm also thinking in the back of my mind, like, man, like, I don't want to be in the 90 to 95% category of going. If I were to go all at this stage, going all the way back to where I was, that's a very real possibility. Then you add on the another mental layer of, like, wow, like, you wake up, you just cannot believe that this has happened. It'll take you years to recover from that mentally. And so there's part of that. The point is, to the goal though, one, this goal is, like, to me, I love it. Like, it sticks out and it's something that keeps me very locked in. But the real interesting part that I thought was when I mentioned the goal originally was 15,000, and I had to do a lot of catching up to get my average to 20,000. I didn't want to wait till October or November to finally catch up to the average and then maintain it. I just felt like I needed it to get up to 20 as soon as I possibly could. And so I was doing all this math, and my original thought was going to do it by the end of April, but with a very lengthy ski trip of being sick for quite a bit, knocked me out. It's like, all right, well, this is real life. I'm still going to try to attack this goal, but it's not going to be April. There's no way on planet Earth I'm going to get to 20,000 average by April 30th. And that was when I turned 41. That's why that originally stuck out. So I was like, all right, sensible. Can I do it May 31st? And the math was, if I could average, I think it was 25,500 steps or something like that. If I did that every day in May, I'll be caught up to my 20,000 step average. And that's a lot of steps, man. But like, I kind of got this thing figured out. I was like, okay, now's the time to do it. If I can get, roughly, 10,000 in the morning, maybe a little bit more, about 8,000 or so around lunchtime. And that's basically an hour walking, pretty fast, maybe a little bit longer than an hour. And then right before I have to pick up kiddo from school, I could organize my month to where I give myself a solid 4 hours of getting out there, attacking these steps. And a lot of that is not every day, but a lot of that is running. But to me, the step is the step. And so I actually ended up averaging over 30,000 steps for the month of May. And I reached that 20,000 step average mark about May 20th or something like that. Here's the thing.
Nice.
It was an awesome achievement. I was so excited. I saw my Alpha Health. I crossed over. I announced it to like my whole family. I was like, I'm here. And they're all looking at me like, you're an idiot, Dad. Like, what? But actually, that's not true. My kiddo loved it. My wife kind of looked at me as like, this is absurd. But, for me, this is like really awesome. Here's my whole point to all of this. All right, so I got to this point earlier than I expected in my second round of trying to catch up. Earlier than expected. And every day I was doing the math and like thinking like, all right, I'm here. I'm doing all right, I'm so close. I'm looking at it. I'm so excited about this goal. And then I hit it, get to the goal. And then for the next probably 3 weeks after that, I sort of let down from it. I was like, I don't have the goal, even though the goal is still to finish 20,000 steps by the end of the year. It took me a long time to recover, to think, all right, it's all good. Like you have this larger goal, and now I'm still excited and figuring out a tactic of the next smaller goal of what I can do. And I need to get something figured out for me personally. That is meaningful to me. Like I can train and get ready for races and upcoming marathons and stuff like that. But as awesome as that is, and that's even better than what, and again, it's personalized, right? This is totally personalized. Like for some people that's like the ultimate dream. Like that's like, I'm training for this, but it's so individualized. It's like, what's meaningful to you? Yeah. Like what is it? And figuring out what that goal is in a medium-term sense. I like short-term goals, but I think I like medium-term a little bit more, like catching up to the 20,000, 2 to 3 months out, 4 months out maybe, and then a longer goal. Small goals, week-to-week goals, daily goals totally matter. But figuring out what that thing is, and I kind of have a few ideas of maybe what this next medium-term goal might be. Having a medium-sized goal that correlates maybe with that there's a connection to your longer-term goal. For me, that's very impactful, and that's where I'm focused right now. That's my mindset right now is attacking a particular goal or set of goals that I could look at. I like short-term goals, but the medium, or I could see it's like just over the edge of the horizon. Yeah. It's like right there. It's almost within reach, but it's not like you're going to reach it just like within a week. You do got to put work into it. I think that's important. And where I think you lost me out, I was saying folks who were like, all they want to do is they just want to lose 10 pounds. They just can't figure out exactly how to do it. There could be so many different reasons why that might be happening, but perhaps sometimes the goals are not enough to supercharge you to get really focused on it. So instead of thinking, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, maybe try to think, either rephrase that goal or pick out something that's more passionate to you, like something that aligns with it. Like I was saying before I think we got cut off, was maybe it's like, hey, I'm going to go to do yoga. I'm going to do 15 yoga sessions over the course. I'm going to commit. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to buy these things in advance. Something like that. Maybe you're attacking your mobility, improving range of motion. And maybe that's the missing piece in the whole puzzle for you, to where you can decompress, or maybe you're improving your range of motion, or it just opens up a different level of lifestyle for you. Now that's just a nonsense example that I just made up. And if that is your goal right now, I don't mean it in a nonsense way like that. That's just something I literally made up. But what I'm getting at is that don't follow a goal because it's just like a goal that either your coach told you, or you've just always thought that you've had, or it's not. I always encourage our clients and anyone who's listening to find something, no matter how absurd it is. If you search hard enough, and if you can kind of quantify it in a way to where you can actually measure it and look at it, or have some sort of way of saying, okay, am I working towards that goal? If it aligns with your real goal, maybe that's the one to follow. Maybe that's the one that it gets you just crazy enough to where you attack it with like velocity, and you go ahead in.
Yeah.
Again, my steps, like it's so absurd. It's like, who does that? But for me, it's a fun puzzle. It's a meaningful challenge for me. So that's where I'm at.
I think the thing I've learned about goals, and for anybody listening, is, you want to stretch yourself, not snap yourself. And
Good.
so for some people just now beginning, goal planning, maybe it's just a goal for the hour. Maybe it's a goal for the day, the goal for the week. Don't worry about setting goals that are monthly, quarterly, a year, 10 years out. What you have to do is set them to a place where you're not discouraged when you see the goal, but you're stretching yourself a little bit, and it will change over time. I know you're saying you're working on intermediate goals, and there's some goals that I have that are short term. And then there's other goals that I'm like, I can play the decade game. Like I can look at a goal 10 years out. The standard's a perfect example. I mean, it's a 10 to 20 year plan. And I'm not discouraged with it, but it's also one of those things that requires a tremendous amount of focus. And so I think for anybody listening, it's just playing around with it and finding something that works for you. If it's discouraging to look at a milestone, then don't worry about the milestone. Look at the process that you're putting yourself through. James Clear talks about in his book, is it the process, or is it the end result? And whichever one's demotivating, then don't focus on that. So a lot of it is just such trial and error when it comes to setting goals. But I do agree with having goals is one of the things that propels us forward. So well said on that.
Yeah.
The last question I wanted to ask you, Eric, is when you think and this is going to be outside of you, but when you think more macroly about challenges that we face as a society, if you could wave a wand and distill down some habit that all people could just automatically embrace, is there a particular habit that sort of stands out that you think would nudge us all in a more loving and kind direction?
I'd say probably let's look at glucose, monitor, regulate our glucose just a little bit, looking at spikes, crashes. Our bodies are, for the most part, inching closer and closer and closer to being all just purely sugar burners. All foods are, these days, all foods are processed, more or less. I mean, compared to the foods that were, 100 years ago, with soil degradation and stuff like that, how they, even the best of foods, right? Some level of processing. So now we judge it by how processed is the food. Is it super processed? And so looking at glucose regulation, and so one thing that potentially is something that I was just talking to our client at Terry Black's about this. We're at this one of the most amazing barbecue places in all of Texas. The original Terry Black's actually down in Lockhart is the best. So this is one by Zoka Park, but it was good. But it is family related. Here I am though, getting green beans and a salad prior to getting ready to crush what looked like an absurd amount of protein. The takeaway is this habit is maybe if you just look at the order of the foods that you're eating, hey, let's try to get some fiber into our bodies. Eat vegetables first, followed by proteins and fats, and then carbohydrates. And sometimes that in and of itself is just, without changing much of anything, can help regulate a little bit of your glucose instead of having this huge glucose spike come in and then a crash and your body's just soaking up all of that. As the carbohydrates come in, breaking down into glucose and just primary energy source for all our cells, loves it, craves it. Maybe having that fiber already in there, imagine it like little linebackers there.
Yeah.
Just ready. Protein comes in, it's going to digest it eventually and break down into amino acids, protein turnover. Then here comes the carbohydrates last, starches.
Yeah.
And the fiber that's there waiting, like little linebackers blocking it, grabbing onto it, slowing it down as the carbohydrates and starches come in. There's plenty of research. I'm not 100% sold on it, but there's plenty of research to say it's not going to hurt, to where if you just think about the order of which your foods you're eating, perhaps you could avoid such a large glucose spike coming up and then conversely glucose crashing. Doing that perhaps is a way that you could adjust your mood over time, a little bit more maybe even keeled, probably sleep a little better, and then that trickles into everything else.
Yeah.
So
well said.
Yeah. I think looking at simple carbohydrates, regulating glucose a little bit, probably could be one of those things that 99% of us could benefit from, including myself still to this day.
Totally. Eric, this has been amazing. You've got so much wisdom and knowledge behind you. Where can people go to learn a little bit more about you? Where's the right place?
Just probably find me either on our website, champcity.com, of course, Instagram. Find me there at champcityatx. You can find me there. Send me a direct message. I'm trying to be as active as I possibly can. Then those messages, send me a message. I respond all the time. If you're struggling, you need some help, you just want to talk, on the website, by the way, and I think through my link in my Instagram bio, if you really are struggling, I do this all the time. There's so many links to where you could schedule a free call with me, no questions asked about like obligations or anything like that. Just if you want to talk about your goals and how maybe you can rethink your mindset. Chris, bonus point, most people are this close to getting it dialed in. It's like just a small adjustment and then be crushing it. And it's usually a mindset shift. We could talk about that. So come on the website, find one of those links, schedule a call. Be happy to talk with you.
Awesome. Eric, you've been such a gracious guest. I really appreciate it. And I know the listeners are going to really appreciate listening to this as well. So I want to thank you for all the time you've given. And this is going to be a good one. Thank you.
You're welcome, Chris, man. Happy to be here. I'll come back anytime you want me to.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I think we need to get a sequel on this. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Standard. Before we go, click on the link in the show notes of this episode to learn more about today's guest. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody who you think would benefit from it as well.